May I invite you to think for a moment about a good friend? I do not mean Jehovah or Jesus or your marriage mate if you married. Just think about another good friend. Now, what makes your friend a good friend? We might think of he is there when I need him, or he or she is interested in me, or we might say he is completely reliable. In other words, a friend is a good friend when this is a trustworthy person. And that's why we want to talk for a moment about trust and friendship. So please continue to keep your friend in mind as we go through 3 different questions that we would like to answer. The first one is, why can you trust your friend? Then, what role do confidential matters play in a friendship? And finally, how can we benefit from the example of Hezekiah? Now, let's start talking about the why. Why can you trust your friend? Wouldn't you agree that the key to identifying someone as a trustworthy person are experiences? Experiences you made with him over months, years, and maybe even decades. What kind of experiences? Let us please turn to Proverbs chapter 17. Here in Proverbs chapter 17, in verse 17, there's a description of one sort of experiences. It says here, Proverbs 17:17, a true friend shows love at all times and is a brother who is born for times of distress. So can you think of a moment in your life when you needed help and your friend was there for you? Or he had a listening ear for you when you were troubled? We also talk about experiences that are described in Proverbs chapter 27. And did you ever experience your friend coming to you and talking to you in the way it's being described here in Proverbs chapter 27 in verse 6? This is Proverbs 27 verse 6, where it says, the wounds inflicted by a friend are faithful. Yes, it might have been a painful moment when your friend came to you and shared with you something that he observed and something where you have to change. And yet, later, did you not feel much closer to him and appreciated the fact that he did not shy away of giving you this advice or counsel? And probably you might think of even other experiences you made with that person that brought you to the point where you are now, blessed with a good friend. Experiences with someone create his or her reputation. It creates a relationship, creates a friendship, makes a person a good friend. Now, that brings us to our second question. What role do confidential matters play in your friendship? Let's please turn to Proverbs chapter 11 and let us read our scripture text for today. And yet we would like to start already with reading verse 12. Proverbs 11, we read verses 12 and 13. There it reads, whoever is lacking good sense shows contempt for his neighbor, but the man of true discernment remains silent. A slanderer goes about revealing confidential talk, but the trustworthy person keeps a confidence. Did you notice the 2 aspects about confidential matters that are mentioned here? Let's try to identify the 2. The first one is our scripture text. A trustworthy person keeps a confidential matter. When we find out that our friend talked with others about things we have entrusted to him, this puts our relationship to a test. For example, we might have confided in him by telling him about our feelings or about challenges we are facing. And now we find out that he's revealing it to somebody else. This can put our relationship to the test. Experiencing this once or even repeatedly will make a friendship unlikely. Because only proving to be a reliable, trustworthy, loyal person creates experiences that are a basis for a good friendship. Now, what's the second aspect? You might have noticed that in verse 12, we are encouraged to remain silent. So does a good friendship justify that we are revealing confidential matters that have been entrusted to us? We know the answer, of course not. When we are trusted with confidential matters, we would not reveal this even to a good friend. And don't we have ample opportunity to prove our trustworthiness? For example, many of us have received access to electronic information stored on the computer network of our organization. Or sometimes we hear an announcement and we are asked to keep confidential, or asked not to record a talk or not to share extensive notes with others. These are moments where we remain silent and would not tell even a good friend. That brings us to our final question: how can we benefit from the example of King Hezekiah? And I'd like to invite you to go with me to 2 Kings 20, because we learn two lessons from Hezekiah's dealings with the messengers of the Babylonian king. This is 2 Kings 20. We'd like to read verse 13. And Hezekiah welcomed them and showed them his entire treasure house, the silver, the gold, the balsam oil, and other precious oil, his armory, and everything that was to be found in his treasuries. There was nothing that Hezekiah did not show them in his own house and in all his dominion. We know that Jehovah did not like what Hezekiah did. So what are the two lessons that we want to take away from this? The first one: things are not always clearly labeled as confidential. However, discernment helps us to determine what to keep for ourselves. For example, we might observe things that put others in a bad light. Do we really need to tell this to a good friend? Does he need to know? Or is he entitled to know? Being loyal to fellow believers means that we do not divulge confidential matters that might endanger them. Love helps us to not unnecessarily publicize their mistakes. Brothers and sisters, these are moments where we can protect one another, where we can protect the organization. A trustworthy person with discernment knows what to do. Then secondly, we might wonder, why did Hezekiah do this? Why did he reveal all his riches? What was his motivation? Interestingly, the insight in the scripture explains Hezekiah may have displayed all this wealth to impress the king of Babylon as a possible ally against the king of Assyria. Now, when we apply this to our theme and subject, friendship, could it be that we likewise are sometimes tempted to reveal something confidential to a friend because we feel this is important in order to maintain this friendship? By revealing something confidential, we might be trying to say to our friend, you are important to me. Our friendship is very important to me. Dear brothers and sisters, when asked at the beginning, what makes a good friend or a person a good friend, did this come to your mind? He's always revealing confidential matters to me. I guess not. On the contrary, we were coming up with things like, because he's a trustworthy and reliable person. So a person that can keep confidential matters to himself is what makes a friend a good friend. So what did we discuss in connection with trust and friendship? Experiences we share with someone create a reputation and might lead to a friendship with a reliable and trustworthy person. Also, a friendship requires that both persons involved respect confidential matters and understand what these are. And the example of Hezekiah reminded us that revealing confidential matters does not make us attractive. On the contrary, it might make finding a friend very difficult. Our text today leaves no doubt that Jehovah wants to be friends with a trustworthy person, someone who does not reveal confidential matters.